Chapter 5 School.
Finally, the day arrived when Vula reached the age of 5 and started preps. She found primary school was a strange new world of blah, blah, blah. Vula learnt that she had to be quiet and not speak until the teacher asked her a question. That was not a problem, since she couldn't speak much English at all. Everything she learnt was by copying what the other kids did in class. If they stood up behind their little chairs, so did Vula. If they walked to the front of the class and sat on little mats, so did Vula too. Everything seemed very different. She thought the teachers were very tall and strict, especially when they stood on the platform in front of the blackboard. Vula felt different from her classmates, even though she wore a school uniform like them. She was unlike the other kids because of her olive skin, and she had no freckles like a lot of the sunburnt English kids. Things got worse. One day, Ardiguro decided to shave off all of Vula's hair with a razor to make it thicker. Ardiguro thought it was too thin and it was nice for girls to have lots of lovely thick hair. Well, Vula had an even more difficult time at school because at playtime the children pulled off her little beanie to laugh at her bald, shiny head. All of these differences separated Vula from her classmates. None of the other kids wanted to be friends with such a strange girl. The children learnt to read from a reader called John and Betty. Everyone had their own book and took it home to practice reading. In class, Vula took her turn going to the teacher's desk to read John and Betty out loud to her. She read 1 or 2 pages per day, and when she got to the end, she read it again until she could read it quickly. Then she got her next reader, which was more difficult. The readers were about the traditional middle-class lives of girls and boys in Britain. Boys played with trains and girls with tea sets. After a year, Vula was able to understand quite a bit of English. When the children teased her and said they could boss her around, Vula replied with, "No, you can't." Her answer only made them tease her more by saying, "You don't even know what that means." Vula replied, "Yes, I do." The other kids yelled, "Go on then, show us." So Vula took a girl by the hand and pulled her round and round herself in a circle. That is what she understood by boss around. Of course, the children laughed at her and Vula felt afraid and alone. Most children like to feel they belong and are friends with their classmates. Nowadays, schools have rules against bullying, but even so, it is still around in schools. It seems that children can be very cruel to one another. Not many new Australians lived in Hamilton in those days. Probably there are still not too many there today either. Life was tough for them because they were not accepted by many Aussies. In those days, there were no pizzas, olives, feta cheese, delicatessens, or newspapers printed in other languages. There were no McDonald's or Pizza Huts either. The Australian government expected new Australians to magically become Aussies, forgetting their own cultures. It was different then. Many people were racists, and there were no laws against racism. There were no English language schools either. So when Peter and Vula started school, they had a difficult time because other children called them rude names and wouldn't let them join in with their games at playtime. Therefore, Theo and Arigiro decided to send their younger son, Jimmy, to kindergarten to give him a head start with the Aussie culture. Neither Vula nor Peter had gone to kindergarten, but it was a good idea because by the time Jimmy started primary school, he had made many friends and was accepted by his playmates. He could also speak English like them. When they were all at school, Jimmy, Peter and Vula walked to the cafe every day during their lunchtime. It was only a block away, so it took them 5 or 10 minutes to get there. A short time when they ran. You can imagine the nice hot meals they enjoyed at Lucas Cafe. So, while their classmates ate Vegemite sandwiches, the three siblings ate steak, chips and salad. Sometimes they had time for ice cream and jelly or fruit salad for dessert. The other children always wanted to know what Peter, Jimmy and Vula had for lunch. They were a bit jealous. But then Vula was in grade 3. It was her job to take Jimmy to kinder 3 days a week during her lunch break. You see, by then, Ariguro couldn't take him to kindergarten because she was too busy working as a waitress at Lucas Cafe. Lunch was their busiest time and they were flat out. Vula took Jimmy's hand and they would walk from Lucas Cafe to his kinder. She tried to make her little brother hurry up by pulling him by the hand as they walked along. But little Jimmy wouldn't walk very fast, and Vula was often late on those days, returning to her school after lunch. After lunchtime, the school sometimes had assemblies, when all the school news was told to the teachers and kids by the headmaster. For Vula, the most embarrassing times were when the whole school was outside in the yard having afternoon assembly. When she was late, assembly had started. All the teachers and kids saw her as she ran through the gate for about 75 metres to join her class. It was her public shame, especially because the students were told that it was important to be on time. The headmaster, Mr. Harris, was a short, plump, balding, kind-looking man, but he also knew how to be stern. Vula was scared of him and often felt her heart beating very fast and her face become red as she ran into the schoolyard after taking Jimmy to kindergarten. Many times she was late in front of everyone. She always felt terrible as she ran to her class group and joined them. Vula wanted to hide from everyone, but she could not. Each time it happened, she promised herself she would never, ever be late again, but sadly without success. The teachers were not very kind about her problem and often scolded her for being late.